Michael Block is competing in the Charles Schwab Challenge in Fort Worth this week and kind of crashed back down to earth, Chelsa. He shoots an 11 over 81 in the first round. Oh, Double D, the timing there. Sitting in last place, and now he trails leader Harry Hall by 19 strokes. I did not know that was coming. And Double D had his finger on the button and nailed it. I don't care. I still think Michael Block is a great story, but this just goes to show, as brilliant as he was, being a regular on the PGA Tour is just a different level.
This is what separates the guys on tour from your average golfer or somebody who can put out a few good rounds of golf, because they do it every single week, which is crazy. Like, look at some of the consistency that we have on tour. Look at damn Scotty Scheffler, who seems to be in the top 10 every single week, whether it's a major, whether it's some tournament that's not even a major. So this is what defines the greats from, the average guys, is the consistency. We see this across all sports because look, even at baseball, when a great pitcher has a down year, like look at Sandy Alcantara this year. People are like, oh, this guy sucks. It's like, no, it's just really difficult to be good at something at the highest level year in and year out. And in the golf world, it's hard to be a good golfer every single week on tour. So that is the difference between somebody who, is a PGA Tour pro where he's teaching lessons, and somebody who is on the tour, even though you could probably say there are guys on tour that are equally inconsistent, but still a great story. Like, I don't think he cares at all, because don't you think he would rather funnel every bit of his good golf game into one magical weekend as opposed to, say, going to every tournament and shooting like a 4 over? Like, I think he'd take this all day.
I agree, totally. And by the way, I have to give credit to Kenny, not Double D, who's running the board right now. Double D, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? It's a Friday. Double D is taking the day off. Good job, Kenny. Nice way to work that in. But I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what he does. He has had his moment. And who's to say he won't have another moment, because he's already qualified based on his finish this year at Oak Hill. He will play at the PGA Championship next year at Valhalla. So who's to say that this can't happen again, or he can't capture some sort of magic? But you're right. It really doesn't matter, because he will hold on to this forever. And I don't think anyone expected him to suddenly start playing golf events and competing near the top 10 every week. That's just completely unrealistic.
If this game is won in the final 2 minutes, I still would rather trust Jimmy Butler in the final 2 minutes over anybody on the Celtics. Maybe that's going to be an old take exposed, but I'm going to stick to it. Are there any other storylines that you're looking at here? I think before I let you go, the Gabe Vincent one, I think, is a big one. They need him in the lineup. So hopefully he returns. We need to check on him and his injury status, because he's been big for the Heat. So I don't think I'm willing to bet on the Heat until I know what's up with him.
My gut is that he plays. And I don't know if this is going to be a theory that holds true or whether you would buy into it. I'm not saying the Heat tanked last night by any stretch of the imagination. What I do think they did was say, Gabe Vincent is injured. We're going to try and win this game. We don't want him to get even more injured. So let's hold him out tonight, get him right. Let's see if we can compete. When it was clear they couldn't compete, then they pulled Jimmy Butler early in the fourth quarter. So to me, it's not that the Heat went in and said, oh, let's just hand the Celtics this win, we'll go back to Miami. It was, let's put our best foot forward here. If it doesn't work out, we'll get Gabe back in game 6. Let's rest Jimmy. Now that we know the game is out of reach, let's just pull back here and then push our chips in for when we go to Miami on Saturday night, which I think is smart, because it's a delicate balance, right? It's the playoffs. You're never just going to give away any game. But also, if you're a thin team, if you don't have any depth, like the Heat don't, and if you're injured, like the Heat are, then sometimes you just sort of have to take the L, mitigate your losses, and look ahead. And I kind of feel like that's what they did last night.
Baseball is so numbers-based, and you have 1,000 metrics that you can look at when you're trying to handicap these games. What stats do you feel like are the important ones when trying to predict some of these outcomes?
I'm pretty much across the board, and I do a lot of homework, or as much as I can time-wise, before I'm laying down what I'm doing for the night. So, how a team's doing as a favorite, like a big trend we've followed throughout this season is, why is Baltimore playing so good? Because they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. They are, I don't know what the updated number is, but their number as the favorite is very successful right now. Like, let's say it's,
It was 19 and 4, I
5.
think.
There we go.
Something
So
like that. Yeah.
following a trend like that, in the beginning of a season, following if rules are affecting anything and what you can take advantage of. But really, for me, from a team perspective, sometimes I think that, BetMGM, when they're putting odds down, it's hard for them to buy into, like, a team, say, like the Orioles, when they were supposed to be okay and not like this. So you hammer that until they adjust. For me, it was kind of the reverse recently, where I was like, the Cardinals aren't this bad. And we took advantage of that for a bit. And also their offense in general, where the total was a little lower than I thought. So those are some of the numbers that I'll look at. And then expected stats for pitchers, right? So the pitcher's coming off a bad outing, but he's had good expected numbers and a track record. I'm going to try to hammer that, especially coming off a bad outing. And then looking at offenses, strikeout numbers for me of an opposing offense, and going, 2 layers deeper. Okay, not just where does this team rank K-wise, but where do they rank K-wise against these particular pitches, right? If it's a pitcher that really sets himself on, if it's a 3-pitch guy and he really sets himself mostly on his secondary stuff, I want to see what that team's doing against, say, right-handed sliders to try and take advantage of a K-prop.
Do you think win-loss record matters at all for Cy Young? I feel like it doesn't.
It does. I kind of
Really?
think it does. Yeah. At some point, and I don't necessarily think it's fair. We see this all the time, right? Guys who are great, but they don't get run support. And you're like, man, this guy's having a fantastic season. Why don't you guys score some freaking runs and help this guy out a little bit? But I do think when you're looking across the board, and certainly ERA, maybe strikeouts, ERA is clearly the primary thing there, but wins and losses do matter. You want your guy on the hill racking up wins, and it's not necessarily fair, but I do think it's absolutely a factor, particularly if it's close. All things being equal, if you have 2 guys who, like Garrett Cole and Shane McClanahan, let's say at the end of the season that they're right there, their metrics, their numbers are super, super even, but then Shane McClanahan has 3 more wins. That might be the tiebreaker.
I think you're right in that regard, because I don't think it necessarily is the end-all be-all. Like, nobody's looking at the win-loss record and being like, well, this guy has the most wins. But you're right. I think it can be the tiebreaker. And to be clear, I'm not talking you off of Shane McClanahan, or even Garrett Cole for that matter, because he's somebody with a track record of success. I just think at that price, it's a little short. So maybe we wait for Shane McClanahan to have a few bad starts, or same goes for Garrett Cole, just so you get a little bit more value, because, reminder, it's the month of May. My favorite kind of cheeseburger is the one that comes off the grill directly. Like, not from a restaurant, but somebody's actual grill. I don't know why they have a different flavor to them, but I love, like, cookout cheeseburgers and cookout hot dogs. I think that's the only time I eat hot dogs, other than, like, going to a baseball game. I guess you don't go to a restaurant and order a hot dog. But still, I absolutely love cookout food. It's amazing.
Well, the lovely Catherine and I 2 weeks ago, we built a grill. We bought a grill. We put it together ourselves. Yeah. And it's not a huge grill, so I don't want to overstate this like this is some huge industrial size grill. I'm not even much of a cook. I can't grill hardly at all. I'm not a good cook. So we promised ourselves we're going to get this grill. We put it together. It's sitting on the deck now, so we're ready to go. We're going to get our propane, and we're gonna make ourselves do it and learn the process. That's one thing that has been a huge weak spot of mine that I've never really learned to do well. But we're going to do it this weekend and see how it goes. So I don't know if it's going to work out, but we are going to have some of those burgers coming off the grill for sure.